Good day, Sangha. It is rainy and stormy outside. Hopefully it is peaceful and calm in your hearts and in your spaces. Hopefully you're all staying safe, as is very prudent these days. Not going out a lot, keeping your social distance, wearing your masks. I'd like to begin our Dharma talk today by reciting the three refuges. We will do it without a bell. If you have it memorized or if you have a book with you, please follow along or recite with me. And we say together, I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and to compassion, and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be freed from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. The title of today's Dharma talk is this: I don't mind. In the previous Dharma talk, which was entitled I Misses the I, we established that reference to the I is, if it is to the individual, is purely ego, and that when we refer to the I, we're actually referring to the all. So ultimately, I am the all is the I. There is no degree of separation. If there were, that would be very dualistic thinking. It is only when we see the ultimate oneness of all things, including each other, that we understand the entrance to the path. Now, that phrase, I don't mind, what does that mean? I really like that phrase because it's sort of a double, triple entendre. If you're sitting somewhere on a plane, a bus, a restaurant, and someone says, may I sit next to you? And you respond, I don't mind. Go right ahead. That's a favorable response. Or it could be used in a sarcastic way. You're dancing with a very, very close friend of yours, and somebody that you really don't know wants to cut in. May I cut in? And you don't want to make a scene, so you say, oh no, I don't mind. All right, well, we all know what that means. It means I really mind, but I'm not going to say it. My daughter Chloe, who has always been a strong-willed child, was about 3, I'd say. And she was being a little on the naughty side, a little on the ornery side. And her mother asked her to do something, and Chloe said, no. Chloe, I asked you to do this. No. Chloe, I need you to mind me. Chloe's response, I don't mind. Which basically meant, yeah, it wasn't going to happen. That's Chloe. She creates her own weather systems. Now, the way we're using it today doesn't have to do with attitude at all. It has to do with this thing we call mind. So when I say I don't mind, I'm talking about the universal I. Don't process information in what would be a typical way for our society in my mind. I'd like to share some readings with you today. 3, actually. The first is from the Sin Sin Ming. I'm getting old. I need these. In the Sin Sin Ming, part of the way through, it says, do not seek for the truth with your mind. Only cease to cherish opinions. Do not remain in a dualistic state. Avoid such easy habits carefully, and they are easy habits. If you attach even to a trace of this and that, of right and wrong, the mind essence will be lost in confusion. Although all dualities arise from the one, do not be attached even to ideas of this one. This is a very important part. When the mind exists undisturbed in the way, there is no objection to anything in the world. And when there is no objection to anything, things cease to be in the old ways, in the ways we've been trained to think and to process information. When no discriminating attachment arises, the old mind, the way we used to think, ceases to exist. Let go of things as separate existences, and mind too vanishes. Likewise, when the thinking subject vanishes, so too do the objects created by the mind. There it's referring to this separation that we see in ourselves, that we've been trained to see, us and them, the rich and poor, the straight and gay, the black, white, green, orange, yellow, brown. When we stop thinking in the ways that we have been trained to think about differences, all that's left for us to see is the sameness, the identical identity of usness. I like to call it the suchness of usness. Back to the Sin Sin Ming. For the realized mind, at one with the way, all self-centered striving ceases. Doubts and irresolutions vanish, and the truth is confirmed in you. With a single stroke, you are freed from bondage. Nothing clings to you, and you hold to nothing. The second reading I would like to do is from the Dhammapada, from the chapter entitled The Mind. Verse 35. Hard it is to train the mind, which goes where it likes and does what it wants. But a trained mind brings health and happiness. The wise can direct their thoughts, subtle and elusive, wherever they choose. A trained mind brings health and happiness. Verse 39. They are wise whose thoughts are steady and minds serene, unaffected by good and bad. They are awake and free from fear. Verse 42. More than those who hate you, more than all your enemies, an undisciplined mind does greater harm. More than your mother, more than your father, more than all your family, a well-disciplined mind does greater good. And then from Shantideva's The Way of the Bodhisattva, which is a wonderful, wonderful book. I highly encourage you to read it. But in the introduction, talks about the mind. The essential problem, which a moment's reflection on experience will confirm, is not that defilements occur within our minds, but that 9 times out of 10, we are not aware that they are there. Or rather, by the time they obtrude upon our waking consciousness, they have usually acquired such dimension and strength that in the ordinary run of things we are powerless to prevent their consequences. The sudden burst of destructive anger, the lustful impulse, the cruel and arrogant word that can have life-changing consequences, must have had their source, perhaps a long time previously, in a momentary flash of impatience or desire that, had it been averted to at the time, might easily have been neutralized and dispelled. All very well, but how precisely is one to become so perfectly self-possessed that no impulse of the mind, however slight, is able to pass unnoticed? Alas, there are no magical solutions. The technique prescribed by Shantideva is that of constant, unrelenting vigilance. I like that. Constant, unrelenting vigilance. A continuous advertence to what is happening within the inner forum. He said that we should guard our minds with the same care with which we would protect a broken or wounded arm while moving through an unruly crowd. And here again, the educative methods of fear and encouragement have their place. Shantideva recommends that as soon as we feel the urge to do something, to speak or even walk across the room, we should get into the habit of self-scrutiny. The slightest impulse to negativity should be greeted with a total paralysis of the system. Shantideva says, it's then that like a log you should remain. No thought should be allowed to develop into action unchallenged. I appreciate that. Now, when it comes to the mind, the Buddha admonishes us to have a reflective mind. What is a reflective mind? When classes come to visit the temple and I have the privilege of meeting with them, there's always one piece of the teaching that I put forward to the groups of students that come in, regardless of age, okay, or other groups that want to visit the temple. And it's this. The Buddha said a reflective mind is similar to a crystal ball. I would like you to take a moment and I would like you to look into this ball. In looking into the ball, reflect a moment on what it is you saw. What did you see? What presented itself in that ball? Everything is the answer. Everything that was in the immediate surroundings was seen in that ball. You could see the picture of Buddha behind me, the Buddha's behind me, the candles behind me. Okay, you could probably see me. All of it was inverted, it was upside down, but it was all present in the ball. Now, ask yourself this very simple question. Of everything you saw in the ball, what is it that the ball actually possessed? Think about that for a moment. If you looked deeply into the ball, you had a recognition that the ball possessed nothing. It reflected everything, but possessed nothing. The Buddha says that our reflective minds should be the same, that it reflects everything, but possesses or attaches to absolutely nothing. The Sen Ming starts out, the great way or the middle way is not difficult for those who hold no preference. A preferential mind possesses thoughts, ideas, cherishes opinions, creates stories about what it possesses, and then those stories take on a life of their own, and it's all meaningless in the end. The reflective mind takes note. It takes note. What does that mean? It sees. It hears. It acknowledges, but does not possess. The reflective mind has learned how to, what I call, honor the pause. We go back to some of the Buddhist teachings again. Before we say, or I'm paraphrasing, of course, before we do or say anything, we must ask ourselves these questions. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it the right time? Am I of the right demeanor? And is it for the benefit of the other individual or individuals? Now, if I answer no to any of those questions, it's best, as Shantideva said, that I remain as a log. I do nothing until I have rearranged the thought process in such a way that it can be reflective, like the ball, not possessive, like our culturally trained minds. And in that reflection, I then can make appropriate decisions in which I can answer yes to all of those questions. Excuse me. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it the right time? Am I of the right demeanor? Is it for the benefit of the other beings? Only then can I say that I possess the reflective mind, and I am in sync with the I, the all, whose goal it is on the path to have this reflective mind as well. May you be well. May you be at peace. May you be healthy. May you learn to accept what is given with grace and loving kindness and compassion and equanimity as we travel through these times.